So, either by some sheer magic coincidence or somehow, I don't know, BestInSlot managed to make a video about the Dilophosaurus size like 2 weeks after I made mine. I don't think that he saw my video, but it is a massive coincidence if, I just find it a little funny. And I wanted to make a little response video because he brought a lot of good points up, but the most important thing I think he pointed out in that video was simply that there's just so much evidence that you could throw either way that really it's all up to you. It's up to personal opinion whether you believe that Dilophosaurus was an adult or a juvenile. And a lot of the conflicting evidence more comes from Jurassic World than Jurassic Park. They are two very different things. Like there's the first two movies, and then there's the Worlds. The Worlds can be the trilogy. Then there's Jurassic Park 3 eating glue in the corner, but we're just gonna pretend he's not there. But yeah. There are some points that I wanted to bring up because there were some things that I really wanted to point out. And first and foremost was the most was for a couple points that I just don't think work at all. Firstly, the fence. He's like, oh well, the fence isn't big enough for an adult Dilophosaurus, which on initial viewing, yeah, that makes sense. But the dinosaurs spit acid, so why are they using a wire fence? We saw Alan Grant roll down his window to fill up his water canister, which means those windows can be rolled down. If someone rolls down the window when they're passing by the Dilophosaurus enclosure, that's a lawsuit right there, because he's going to get spat in the eyes and they're going to get paralyzed and blinded. So that's point number one. The cage was already insufficient to hold the baby Dilophosaurus, but even there's a second point about that. The Dilophosaurus drops down from a tree in its initial viewing. But there are trees going over the edge of the fence. The baby Dilophosauruses could have easily climbed those trees and hopped over the fence. The cage itself was insufficient to even hold the infants. Why would it be? It's completely, believable to think it wouldn't hold the adults either. That point doesn't really. It's not really a point if it's like, well, it doesn't hold the adults. It doesn't particularly hold the infants well either. It's rather shoddily designed. The T-Rex, he pointed out, the T-Rex's cage is massive. Yeah, because the T-Rex is very well understood to be a massive, murderous dinosaur of immense size that everyone shits themselves when they see. It's just, that's a known fact. Dilophosaurus, not the kind of dinosaur you think, oh, we need to build an extra special big cage for this one. And it is, I don't know. I guess that point's a little more weak and more opinionated, but that point is that the cage was insufficient to even hold the infant Dilophosaurus. So that's a point that just doesn't even work for me. The second one he brought up, he's like, oh, well, because, they were that size. Like, he tried to support it with the fact that games like Jurassic Park Operation Genesis had shown them at that size. But that's not a canon game. I don't think you can use that as evidence. I mean, that's just iffy. That's questionable. Yeah, they were that size in Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, but Jurassic Park Operation Genesis never happened. So if they brought Acrocanthosaurus into the game, into the movie franchise, I'm gonna bet money right now it would not look like the one we saw in Jurassic Park Operation Genesis. It's like if they brought any dinosaurs that are in Jurassic World Evolution into the movies, it probably wouldn't look like it would in the game. I mean, we saw that alone with just how the Suchomimus design is taken from the website, Baryonyx taken from the movie. Baryonyx on the website and the movie are very different things. It's just, you can't really count that because they're not really following canon. They're just kind of doing their own thing and having fun with the idea, making a park building simulator that leeches off of canon more than actually is. It's a spin-off. Spin-offs aren't exactly perfectly canon at all points in time. Again, see, it's really opinionated because there's so much conflicting evidence that comes from different sources and all that. I mean, he even pointed out that one thing, like that screen in the Lost World that showed that Dilophosaurus and talked about its actual size. I didn't know about that. I actually didn't know about that, which is really interesting. But that's another piece of conflicting evidence that supports the adult size rather than the juvenile. And the funny thing is, if you look at the first two movies, that's where all the supporting evidence comes from being an adult. Look at the Jurassic World movies, and that's where all the evidence really comes from it being a juvenile. And that's just, and maybe other sources of media and such, grabbing bits and pieces here. But there's just so much conflicting evidence that you really just, it all comes down to what you personally want to believe at this point. And there was also the point someone should bring up, well, why would he use brother if all dinosaurs are female? Uh, that doesn't really mean much at all. And I know you pointed out, well, Nedry's a program. He probably didn't know. And he tried to explain how Nedry probably didn't know what a Dilophosaurus is at all. But I don't know about you. He's like, oh, well, his reaction wasn't proper. Are you kidding me? The man looked like he shat himself as soon as he saw that thing. I don't know what would be a proper response other than going by being absolutely terrified like he looked. The guy looked horrified when he saw the dinosaur, as if he knew what was going to happen. I mean, that, again, that's debatable because it's all opinionated based at this point because there's just so much that you can say against or for it. So what it really comes down to is more, what do you personally want to believe? What do you want to believe? That's the biggest point here. That's the biggest sticker. And I know say, well, that was its shape in the hologram, size of the hologram. The place where the hologram actually was moved from the center of the island to the edge of the island between two movies. They can retcon that whenever they want. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just the fact that they retconned that huge part in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom proves that they could retcon pretty much anything they wanted. I mean, that's a pretty big change. It was in the center of the island. We could see that when the camera flew overhead as it exited the hotel. And then in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, it's all of a sudden on the edge of the island. There's, again, like, this really just comes down to, what do you personally want to believe? There are points that I can argue against, but at the end of the day, it's not going to mean much because it all depends. What do you personally think? And to bring up that point about the male and female thing again, like, oh, well, that's a female. Why would he call it brother? Muldoon in the book refers to Rexy as a male. I mean, I know it's more derogatory than anything, but I mean, something of that immense size, something that deadly, And we give genders to inanimate objects. We call a boat a her, a car a her. Car doesn't have a gender. Genders aren't exactly something that we stick stringently to and call everything exactly what they are. I mean, fucking hell, there's people out there who believe that they're making up their own genders at this point. It's not a strong point. And that's with the little added statement, in my opinion, because this really just comes down to, what do you personally want to believe? I believe that it was an adult, or that it was a juvenile, and that there were adults that reached the proper size, simply because, well, I believe that the first two movies were right, and that Jurassic Park the game was also right in that sense. And Jurassic Park the game can be officially counted, in case anyone, I don't know if that was brought up or not, I was going to back and watch the video, but I've got to kind of get through this quickly, because I got shit to do today. I got to get to work and all that, but, like, the volcano itself, it was named in Jurassic Park the game, which is now the official used name of, at least I think it was. If it's not, you can point that out. But I mean, I think the thing was, it was named in Jurassic Park the game, and that is now the official name of the volcano on Isla Nublar. And the Herrerasauruses were also proved canon with the release on the Dinosaur Protection Group website. They listed those 4 Herrerasaurs that we saw on the Bone Shaker, which also kind of sort of implies that the Bone Shaker is also part of canon. That they showed that the 4 Herrerasauruses not only existed but also all died. So, and that's kind of, that brings me another interesting point. It's just like, also, what do you believe is canon from Jurassic Park the game? And that's a different question entirely, because obviously some of it's canon, but some of it's not, because they said they were going to bomb the island at the end of the game. But then again, the jets or whatever were going to bomb the island, because they've just been taken down by pteranodons. Who knows? I mean, it's just, there's one, I mean, he pointed out so many good points, and at the end of the day, what I thought was a definitive video really just turned out to be more of a state on my opinion, that I didn't even realize there were that many facts and that many ideas that could be thrown against it, It all comes down to, what do you personally want to believe? And I think that says a lot about this situation. I mean, Dilophosauruses, I believe that they were that big, and I really do want to believe that, and I have enough evidence to support myself, as much as anyone who doesn't want to believe that has evidence to support their idea. I mean, there's really not much else I could say, because I can't definitively shut this down, because there is enough evidence against it that is a fact that is set in stone, but there is just as much for the idea. So what it really comes down to is just, what do you want to believe? You know, whatever you want to believe is what you want to believe, and there's nothing I can try to convince you of my point, but there's really not much else I can do. There's nothing I can't officially shut down every argument because there is no way to shut down every argument. It's not possible. You know? At the end of the day, this is not a closed case. It is very open for the future of the franchise to take, even though I don't really believe Fallen Kingdom or any of the Jurassic World movies in general are canon. I consider them more spin-offs than anything because they seem to exist in their own little world where the characters are about as three-dimensional sheets of paper and are all about as intelligent as a rock, making Patrick Star. I mean, putting Patrick Star as the main character probably would have led to better results than whatever happens in in those movies, because every character is just unbelievably stupid. So I don't. Again, that's another opinion-based thing. Do you even believe that Jurassic World itself is canon or a spin-off? Because I know they're trying to make it canon, but I mean, honestly, it doesn't even seems about as much canon as the fucking fan fiction books that I read. Not that kind of fan, like a legit story, a fictional story set in the universe written by a fan. None of that shipping nonsense. Just all of it seems about as much canon as the books that I write in my free time. So yeah, I mean, it's just it doesn't seem real to me, honestly. Much like Jurassic Park 3. Jurassic Park 3 is sadly. I mean, I make fun of the movie a lot because it's just absolute garbage. I don't like it, and it's just not a very good movie overall. Poorly designed, bad story, bad characters, and all that. So like, there's so much opinion coming out of this because just really that's what it is. That's what it all comes down to, is the opinion that you choose to believe. When it comes to this Dilophosaurus, case is completely open. Take any piece of evidence you want and roll with it. If you want to believe it's that small, go right ahead. There's nothing I can do to stop you because there's enough evidence to support your opinion that is set in stone. However, I believe Dilophosauruses weren't that small, and there was enough evidence to support my idea. And if I'm gonna be honest, if I ever consider anything canon, I'm gonna take the first two movies before I take anything else, because let's just say the first two movies are good, and the rest are of questionable status. Jurassic Park 3 was flaming dumpster fire, Jurassic World was alright, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was just better by a small margin than Jurassic World. And I just don't think that they're, like, just overall, just, you know, the original two movies were really good, and the rest are of questionable status, so I'm gonna take them more as canon than anything else. So yeah, I mean, that's really all there is to it. Just stating my opinion because that's all that can be done at this point. I still believe the Dilophosauruses were, in fact, the right size. They were as big as they should be, and you can try to convince me otherwise. It's probably not gonna work because I believe this ever since I saw the movie as a kid, and that's really just how it is. And there's enough evidence to support myself that you really don't have a good chance of making a solid case that will officially convince me. As much as I can't do the same to you because there's just enough evidence on both sides of the fence to justify any answer. Or either answer, as it would be. So yeah, that's really all there is to say about this. Whatever you want to believe, whatever you want, it's all up to you. It's all up to your opinion, it's all up to your interpretation. And there's nothing I can say that will really change anyone's opinion at this point. So yeah, that's just the word I wanted to get in. I'm sure I didn't address every point that he made, but I think I've made my stance pretty clear in that I don't think that there is an official answer for this. That it is based mostly on opinion, and that's really all there is to say about it. BestInSlot made some good points. He helped support his idea, and I think I've given enough evidence to support mine. And yeah, that's really all there is. I keep dragging this on. I really shouldn't go any further. I'm just gonna stop here.